It was dark, and we noticed there was a tremendous lot of activity in the streets, which meant that that night something was happening. There was a tremendous noise around the building, and a battery of German SS soldiers turned up and said, I knew they were there, and they found us. We were put into a railway carriage and then taken to the unknown, arriving at the gate, which you probably all saw, which said Arbeit macht frei. We were in Auschwitz. My sister and I waited till the doors were opened, quite sure that this was the best chance we had to meet with Mother. My sister was told to go to the left, I was told to go to the right. I grabbed her hand, held on to her for sweet life. It didn't help. The man who was in charge of the duty of selection of who was to live and die saw me hanging on to her and said, let her go, she'll go to school. And I said, I want to go to school too. And he said, no, you'll go somewhere else, you're bigger. And my sister again listened to his command to leave me. And he just turned to her and said the magic words, go on, little one, go on, you'll go to Palestina. Well, for a little girl that was dreaming of being reunited with her father, that was just the sort of glockenspiel that she wanted to hear. And she ran as fast as she could away from me. At that stage, I had no idea how dreadful the man's psychology was towards this innocent little child. My sister was pushed to the left, and I never saw her again.
But I was also in Auschwitz, as you know, and from there I was around about 6 weeks there. From there I went to a Arbeitslager, workers' lager. We were cleaning rubbles all the time because that area was bombed constantly. Eventually we were bombed too. We lost a lot of our girls. And it was September. It was actually Rosh Hashanah. We were taken from Gelsenberg to Thüringen, where we were working in an ammunition factory. There we had even a bunker. Previously we had nothing. But eventually we had to leave the camp from one minute to the other. And then we started to march. And we were marching for weeks and weeks. All the roadways littered with burned tanks and trucks and bodies, and we just marched. We had to march 25 to 30 kilometers per day, which was very, very hard, especially my poor sister, who had to march with a wooden clock, 30 kilometers per day. It was terrible. I can still hear her wooden clock, how it clapped on the roadway.
I must admit, by that time I couldn't anymore face marching. I didn't realize that I had typhoid. I was very weak, and I decided I'm staying. I don't want any more. And I hid in the camp. I must have fallen asleep, and I suddenly heard a male footstep, opened my eyes and saw a pair of bow legs in uniform above my head in the gutter where I was hiding. I couldn't believe it, but they were there, our liberators.
While we were marching on the main road towards towards a fairly large city, Glasgow it was. The roadway was fairly high up, very wide, on both sides of the road. We had ditches, very deep ditches, and all of a sudden, while we were marching, we could hear tanks from a distance rumbling. That was behind us. And in front of us, we heard the same thing and shooting. Actually, the SS woman was calling out to us, quickly go down to the ditches, which we did. And that's the last time I saw her. She disappeared. And it was already sundown. So we just crawled on our tummy to a nearby factory, which was a leather factory. And we took shelter. I think my sister took her wooden clogs down and broke the window to get into that place. And we stayed there until we were liberated by the Americans.
I can't remember much for a few days because I was very ill. When I came to, I was in barracks that had been occupied by the German soldiers before me. There was the Russian army doctor who happened to be Jewish and was extremely helpful and made absolutely sure that I didn't fall victim to all the care parcels that were there. The Russian doctor who looked after me told me that that would kill me, to just have cabbage, boiled cabbage, and that was the way they saved me.
We just couldn't believe it. We said, where are the Germans? And they said, oh, they're all gone. They fled. You are free, you are free. We still didn't believe it. We stayed there for quite a while before we could start going back and hoping that perhaps we find somebody back still home. I wanted to get away from Czechoslovakia, and so I started to learn millinery, to have some sort of trade in my hand.
I had a cousin, Adrian, who was a milliner. She told me one day that she had a very nice young girl, a little bit older than me, but not much, working for her, and was very gifted and very pretty. We met. We did know about each other's plans, maybe, to leave Bratislava. For me, it was just a means to a kind of blotting out what I couldn't get out of myself. I couldn't stop thinking and feeling tremendous guilt that I was alive. And it just became a kind of walking constantly on tombstones. So we had that in common, and I remember when I got my call that my passport is being granted, I could hardly believe my luck. I went to the interview, and who should I see there sitting? The pretty girl that I knew so well. And we sat together, both of us terribly nervous and wondering what was going to happen. I came out having been granted the rubber stamp, which was my first step en route to Australia, waited for Ibi outside, and she came back with a big smile. She also got it. And from that moment on, we realized we have to try and time our exit together, because we were both lone sailors. We managed to remain friends. We had our arguments occasionally, but we were very close. Our weddings were very close.
3 months between us. We met our husbands practically at the same time. We got married 3 months apart. We had our first sons 6 months apart.
Having lost my only sister, I'm so fortunate that in Ibi I have found as close a sister as possibly mine would have been had she lived.
Vice versa.
We've managed to stay good friends over the years that we've lived here. We were very close in touch, and every year had a get-together with those people that traveled with us.
65 years ago, I was telling my family on that gathering at my son's place that we were together as 4 generations of Australians. 4 generations. We just came, the 2 of us, and now we have 4 generations.